So I have a question, and it's been just bothering me all week. It's one of those things that once you see it, you just can't unsee it.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's keeping you up at night?
It's the inconsistency. You
Yeah.
know, why do good people, and I'm talking about people who, they preach about family values, people who are really strict about law and order, why do they sometimes defend absolute monsters?
Monsters is a strong word.
But is it? I mean, we see people who would, like, demand the death penalty for a kid stealing a backpack, but then turn around and write love letters to a serial killer.
Okay, yeah.
Or they'll condemn a politician for some minor gaffe, but give a total pass to someone else for something, criminal. It's like the moral compass just spins freely depending on who we're talking about.
It's a heavy observation. And you're right, it's not just random. It's a pattern. You
Wow.
see it in history, you see it in the news, and if you spend 5 minutes on social media, you definitely see it there.
Exactly. So today we are diving into a source that claims to have the answer.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, it's not just politics. It's not just social conditioning. This source argues that what we're looking at is an architectural failure inside the human being.
Right. We're exploring the concept of mental versus spiritual resilience. And the core argument here is fascinating because it totally reframes the conversation. It suggests that racism, sexism, hypocrisy, these aren't just bad behaviors that people choose. They are symptoms of spiritual brokenness.
Spiritual brokenness. It sounds a little abstract. Before we get into the heavy stuff, help me understand the landscape here. The source uses a metaphor about a treasure and a gatekeeper.
It does. And honestly, this metaphor is the key to unlocking the whole deep dive. If you get this, everything else just clicks into place.
Okay, let's unpack it. Who is the treasure and who is the gatekeeper?
Okay, imagine a fortress. Deep inside the vault, the thing you are protecting at all costs is the treasure. In this model, the treasure is your spirit.
Okay, hold on. When the source says spirit, are we getting religious here? Are we talking about ghosts or vibes?
It's broader than that. In this context, spirit is your fundamental identity. It's part of what the source calls the Core 4 foundation.
Core 4?
Yeah, the source outlines these 4 pillars of human existence: mind, body, wallet, and spirit.
Wallet. Okay. I did not expect finance to be in there with spirit.
It's interesting, right? But it makes sense if you think about it. Your body is the vehicle, your mind is the engine, your wallet is the fuel. But the spirit is the destination. It's the purpose. It's that deep internal knowing that you are worthy, that you are loved, and that you are here for a reason.
So without the spirit, without that treasure, the car's running, but it has nowhere to go.
Exactly. You can be fit, smart, and rich, and still be completely empty if the spirit is broken. That's why it's the treasure. It's the essence of who you are.
Okay, so that's the treasure. And naturally, if you have a treasure, you're going to need some security.
Enter the gatekeeper. That is your mind.
So the mind is the bouncer.
The mind is the bouncer. Its entire job, according to this source, is to stand at the door of the spirit and check IDs.
Check IDs for what?
For thieves. The source argues that the world is constantly trying to rob you of that spiritual peace. It wants to break in and steal your sense of worth. And it does that by feeding you lies.
Lies like what?
You know the ones. You're too dark, you're too emotional, you're illegal, you're poor, you're not enough.
I think everyone listening has heard that knock at the door at some point.
We all have. And a healthy gatekeeper looks at that message and says, whoa, hold on, let me check the list. Does "you are worthless" align with the treasure inside? No. Access denied.
And it just kicks it out.
It kicks it out. That is mental resilience. It's the ability to filter out the garbage before it can poison the soul.
And I'm guessing this is where things go wrong. What happens when the security guard falls asleep?
Yeah.
Or, worse, what if the security guard is corrupt?
Then you have chaos. If the gatekeeper is fractured, it lets the thieves in. It lets in hate. It lets in fear. It lets in these false narratives. And once those things get past the gate, they start to rot the spirit from the inside out.
And this brings us to what might be the most controversial part of the source material. It suggests that racism, hate, and prejudice are actually the result of a broken gatekeeper.
Yes.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate for a second. Isn't calling racism spiritual brokenness kind of a cop-out? It almost sounds like we're feeling sorry for them. Oh, he's not a bigot, he's just broken. Doesn't that sort of let them off the hook for being terrible people?
I see why you'd say that, but the source argues it's actually a more damning diagnosis. It's not saying they aren't responsible. It's explaining the mechanism of their failure. It's saying this person is so internally weak, their mind has to fabricate a reality just to survive.
So they aren't these strong warriors for their race or whatever they might claim to be.
No, they're people with a security system that has completely failed. The source gives a really stark example. It mentions a KKK leader, a pastor of all things, who genuinely believes that black people cannot enter heaven. Or a man named Jake Lang, who claims to be a devout Christian but, uses racial slurs and preaches hate.
The hypocrisy there is just screaming loud. I mean, how do you read the Good Samaritan story and then act like that?
That's the point. A functioning mind would say, hey, these two things contradict each other. I can't love God and hate my neighbor. But a broken gatekeeper, it filters reality to protect the lie.
It's like confirmation bias on steroids.
Precisely. The source talks about how these individuals have to actively ignore biology, science, and even their own scripture to maintain their worldview. They have to tunnel vision their way through life.
The source had some data on this that I found really striking. It talked about how hate groups consume news.
Right, they hyper-focus. If they see a negative story about a minority group, say, arrest rates, they just latch onto it. See, I told you.
But then they ignore the other side of the ledger.
Completely. The source cites a statistic that in certain contexts, up to 60% of exonerations people proved innocent after being locked up involve black or brown people.
60%.
It's a massive number. It suggests a huge systemic error. But a person with a broken gatekeeper doesn't see innocence. They don't see injustice. They filter that data out because it threatens their entire worldview.
Yeah, just delete the file because it doesn't fit the narrative.
Exactly. The source says you could show them 1,000 black graduates from Ivy League schools, and they won't register it. They will zoom in on the one failure to keep their treasure of superiority intact.
It's actually kind of pathetic when you think about it. It's a very fragile way to live.
It is fragile, and that fragility leads to what the source calls the two masters problem. This is where the whole double life thing comes in.
Oh, this section shocked me. I mean, I knew hypocrisy existed, but the data point the source brings up about the Bible Belt was just jaw-dropping.
It's uncomfortable data, for sure. The source notes that states in the U.S. that are deemed the most conservative, the most family values-oriented, and the most religious
have the highest consumption of pornography.
And not just adult pornography. The source specifically mentions higher rates of child pornography consumption in these unexpected regions.
That is a massive, massive disconnect. So you have Sunday morning, holy, 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 and then Saturday night, incognito mode. How does a human being even sustain that contradiction?
It's the fractured gatekeeper again. The mind just compartmentalizes, it splits. It says, okay, I can be this righteous person in public and this completely different person in the dark.
Serving two masters.
Right. And the source argues you cannot be spiritually healthy if your mind is splitting itself in two like that. You might feel righteous because you go to church or vote a certain way. But if the gatekeeper is letting in that kind of darkness in private, the spirit is rotting.
It's the ultimate rules for thee, but not for me.
Which leads us perfectly to the term the source uses that I think defines our current cultural moment. Goalpost movers.
Goalpost movers. I love this visual. It sounds like a sports penalty, but it's so much more serious.
The mantra of the goalpost mover is simple. When it's them, the law is the law. When it's us, the law is a suggestion.
This feels like we're wading into politics, but the source insists this is psychological, not just political.
Well, it plays out in politics, sure, but fundamentally it's about a mind that twists reality to protect its tribe. And the source gives two case studies here that are, well, they're pretty disturbing.
Let's talk about the first one, the Ted Bundy effect.
This is just chilling. We all know who Ted Bundy was.
Serial killer, rapist, necrophile. A monster by any objective standard you could possibly imagine.
Correct. He hunted women, he did unspeakable things. But the source takes us back to his trial. Do you know what the atmosphere was like in that courtroom?
I would assume people were terrified.
Angry.
You'd think. But the source describes the courtroom being packed with young women.
Women who were swooning over him. He received piles of love letters in prison. Women showed up to the trial with their hair parted in the middle because they heard that's how he liked his victims to look.
Wait, stop.
Yeah.
They were styling themselves to look like his victims. That makes my skin crawl.
It's physically repulsing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we have to ask, why? Why would good girls who probably fear crime fall in love with a serial killer?
I just can't wrap my head around it.
The source argues it's the ultimate failure of the gatekeepers. These women looked at Bundy and they didn't see monster. They saw a handsome, white, educated law student. They saw one of us.
So the tribe marker overrode all the facts.
Completely. Because he flattered their bias, he was charming, he looked like them, their minds moved the goalpost, the horrific crimes became secondary, the narrative became, oh, he's just misunderstood, or he's too cute to be that bad.
That is absolutely terrifying. It shows that if the bias is strong enough, people will literally invite the wolf right into the henhouse.
They will, and the source brings us right into the modern era with a comparison that is going to ruffle some feathers. But again, we're just looking at the psychological mechanism the source is pointing out.
Right. This is the comparison between the treatment of George Floyd and Donald Trump.
Yes. And regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum, look at the consistency of the judgment. That's what the source is analyzing here.
So let's look at the George Floyd side first.
Mm.
When he was killed, what was the narrative from his critics?
An immediate background check. The source notes that critics dug into his past criminal record instantly. They cited his history of drug use or past crimes to justify his death. The argument was, if you break the law, you face consequences.
Law and order. His past made him unworthy of sympathy.
Exactly. He was no angel, right? That was the phrase you heard everywhere. But then the source contrasts this with the reaction, often from the exact same demographic, to Donald Trump regarding his felony convictions and liability for sexual abuse.
And I'm guessing the law and order argument didn't quite apply there.
Not even a little bit. The reaction wasn't, he broke the law, he faces consequences. It was, free him. It's a witch hunt. He's God's man.
So for Floyd, a past criminal record defined his entire existence. For the political figure, 34 felony convictions were irrelevant.
That is the definition of moving the goalposts. The source argues this proves that for these people, the judgment was never actually about the law.
It was about the tribe.
Exactly. Is this person in my tribe? If yes, we defend them. We move the goalposts. We say the judge is corrupt. We say the system is rigged. If it's George Floyd, we throw the book at them.
And the source says this isn't just political strategy. This is a spiritual sickness.
It's a mind-twisting reality to protect a fragile identity. If you admit that your guy or your tribe is capable of wrong, then you have to question your own judgment. You have to question your own treasure. And a broken gatekeeper absolutely refuses to do that.
It protects the lie at all costs.
At all costs, even at the cost of truth, even at the cost of justice.
Wow. Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem. We have broken gatekeepers. We have goalpost movers. We have this deep spiritual brokenness. But what does this mean for us, for the person listening right now?
That's the pivot. Because we can sit here and point fingers at the hypocrites all day long, but the source pivots to something actionable. It asks, how do you protect your treasure?
Because if we aren't careful, we let these goalpost movers define us, don't we?
We do. If you listen to a goalpost mover, someone who hates you for your race or your gender or your background, you will never be good enough. You'll never be American enough. You will never be righteous enough because they will just move the line every single time you get close.
So we have to stop trying to kick the ball through their goalposts.
Exactly. We have to reclaim our worth. The source says you must realize that when someone hates you or judges you unfairly, it is a projection of their brokenness, not a reflection of your value.
I love that. But how do we do that in practice? The source mentions an exercise called the identity audit.
The identity audit. It's a mental check-in. And it's something you can do right now in the car or at the gym.
Walk us through it.
Okay, so think about the negative things you say about yourself. Those little nagging voices. I'm not smart enough. I don't belong in this room. I'm too loud. I'm damaged goods.
Okay, I've definitely got a few of those.
Now, you ask the question, did this come from my spirit? Did this come from my creator? Or did this come from a spiritually broken hypocrite?
That's a really powerful filter.
It clarifies things almost instantly. If that voice tells you you're worthless because of your skin color or your past or your bank account, that didn't come from the treasure. That came from a thief.
So what do we do when we identify a thief?
The source calls it a mental return to sender.
Return to sender.
You visualize that thought as a package that was left on your porch. You look at the label, you see it's from a broken place, and you simply say, I'm not signing for this. You kick it off the porch. You tell the gatekeeper, hey, wake up. This doesn't belong in the treasury.
I really like that image because we tend to just accept whatever packages show up. We drag them inside, open them up, and let them clutter up our house.
Exactly. You don't have to accept the delivery. Just because someone throws hate at you doesn't mean you have to catch it.
This brings us to the final thought the source leaves us with. And I found this surprisingly compassionate. It's about how we view these haters.
It is compassionate, but it's also strategic. It's easy to get angry at the hypocrites, and rightfully so. I mean, the damage they do is real. But the source suggests a shift in perspective.
The screaming child analogy.
Right. So imagine you're in a nice restaurant, and there is a child at the next table just screaming. Maybe they're overtired, maybe they have a developmental delay, maybe they just don't know any better.
It's annoying. It definitely ruins the mood.
It does. But do you get personally offended? Do you think that child is screaming because he hates me specifically? Do you internalize it as a flaw in your own character?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
You look at the parents, you roll your eyes, but you realize the child is just struggling. You almost pity them.
The source suggests viewing racists, hypocrites, and goalpost movers through that exact same lens.
Treat the KKK member like a screaming toddler.
In a spiritual sense, yes. View them as spiritually broken. View them as mentally underdeveloped in this area. When they spew hate, it's not a critique of you. It's a symptom of their sickness.
That's the sickness talking.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
takes the power away from them. If you get angry, they have power over you. But if you pity them, if you see them as broken people serving a lie, you keep your power. You keep your treasure safe.
That is a powerful place to land. It really shifts the dynamic from being a victim of hate to being an observer of someone else's brokenness.
And that is the essence of true resilience. It's not about having a thick skin. It's about having a sharp gatekeeper.
So, to everyone listening, check your security system today. Are you letting in lies that don't belong to you? Are you accepting packages from spiritually broken people?
And maybe, just maybe, look at the people judging you and realize they are the ones fighting a war inside their own heads. You don't have to join them.
Keep your treasure safe. Keep your gatekeepers awake. And send that junk mail back to where it came from.
Return to sender.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today, from the Core 4 to Ted Bundy to the identity audit. It's a lot to process.
It is, but if you take one thing away, let it be this. Your worth is the treasure. It is worth protecting.
Thank you for helping us unpack all of this. It's been a real eye-opener.
Always a pleasure.
And to you, the listener, thanks for diving deep with us. Take care of that treasure. We'll see you next time.